unlike moving the puppet pin, which will move the mesh, by moving the overlap tool, we're not going to move the mesh, but instead move where the overlapping priority occurs. If we open up the values for the right hip in the overlap tool, we'll see that this pin has a position value, an in-front value, and an extent value. Up in the comp window, I can move this around and see that when I move it, the extent over the triangulation doesn't change. It still has an extent value of 40. However, the position does move, changing the affected area of the mesh and modifying that mesh with the priority that I've assigned to this overlap tool. We can animate each one of these parameters, the position, the in-front value, and the extent. The reason that we may want to animate these is in conjunction with the puppet pins. I'll go ahead and set a quick animation for the puppet pins on the right leg. First, the foot will have to be animated. So I'll jump 5 frames out, then use Command P or Control P on a PC to navigate back to the puppet pin. I'll select that bottom pin, then animate it out to the side. I'll navigate to 10 frames, then animate it closer in towards the center. I'll move down the timeline to about 15 frames, then animate it again so that it moves out. And at 20 frames, back in again. By clicking and dragging on the playhead, I can see that leg continues to move in front of the center leg. I may want to have the center leg's value appear in front of and behind that right leg's animation. So I'll close up the parameters for the right foot and close up the parameters for all of the deformation pins so I can focus on the overlap pins. In order to see those, I'll have to choose the overlap tool. Next, I want to change the animation value for the center leg. Both the center hip and the center foot control the priority of the center leg. Here, I'll open up the center hip, then change the priority at frame 15. I'll change the in-front value by first creating a keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch. I'll just navigate to the very next frame by using page down, then change the value to positive 50. I can do the same for the center foot, or better, simply hold down the Option key or the Alt key on a PC, then click on the in-front value. This sets up an expression value, which I can pick whip for the in-front value of the center foot and link it to the in-front value of the center hip. I'll use Enter to accept it, and now my values will match. I'll change to the Selection tool by typing V on the keyboard so I no longer see the mesh. By quickly scrubbing in the timeline, I can see that the right leg starts out on the side, moves out, and as it moves back in for the first time, it crosses over the center leg. It moves out again, and when it crosses the second time, it moves behind it. Well, it doesn't move quite as far behind as I'd like, so in order to make it move further back, I'll move up to the value for the overlap tool for the right leg. It's the right foot that I really need to pay attention to, and here I might change the value to something much lower. Now with it lower, I need to make sure that this also animates so that it doesn't fall behind the leg as it passes at frame 15. I'll set a keyframe here, then moving back to about frame 15, I'll set the value back to negative 50. I'll move these two keyframes together by simply clicking and dragging on the second one so that the animation of the leg passes in front of the center leg on the first pass, and then on the second time, crosses behind it. If we take a closer look at the leg, we see that some of the pixels aren't obeying the overlap commands by negative 83 or positive 50. The reason for this is that the extent of our overlap pin isn't far enough. If we go back to our overlap pin tool, we can see that there are small areas here that aren't being affected by the extent of this tool. We can adjust the position of the pin or change the extent of the pin in order to have more influence over the mesh. Again, I'll choose the selection tool to see what it looks like, and now with the extent at a greater value, all of those pixels are pushed far behind the center leg.